Good. All right. Well, first off, thank you everyone for coming today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered here today on Treaty 8 traditional territory. My name is Shannon Greer, and I'm with Alberta's Ministry of Municipal Affairs. We'll begin today with some remarks from our speakers, and then they'll be happy to take your questions. So without further ado, I'll invite our first speaker, Conrad Sauve, President and CEO of the Canadian Red Cross, up to speak.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. It's an honor to be here along with Minister Eyre, Minister Labreve, Mayor Blake. When the wildfire evacuation began, the Red Cross was ready. As an organization, we have trained volunteers and staff located across the country who are ready to respond to disasters or emergency situations. And we work closely with all levels of government to avoid duplication of efforts and ensure urgent assistance reach the most vulnerable. The Alberta Wildfire was an unprecedented disaster, but the outpouring of support came as a result that brought hope along with it and quickly turned a devastating situation into Canada's moment of shine. To date, more than $165 million have been donated to support immediate assistance to individuals and families affected by the Alberta wildfires. More than 2,600 Red Cross volunteers and staff have worked tirelessly, turning donations from over 1 million Canadians into help for those impacted by this tragedy. And together, we've already done a great deal to ensure people are receiving the help they need. For example, following the evacuation, we supported 8 emergency shelters, utilized 13 call centers across the country, and handled over 107,000 calls, provided flight or bus transportation home for more than 9,400 people, provided more than 90,000 items ranging from blankets, hygiene kits, to teddy bears and cleanup kits. I'm going to return again in a few moments to provide you with a full summary of our financial total to date for this response and the ways we will be able to go to help throughout the recovery phase. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to ask Kent Hare, Canada's Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence, to speak.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mayor, Minister Labreve, and Conrad, it's a thrill to be here. I can say that it's an honor and privilege to be here on behalf of Minister Ralph Goodale, Minister of Public Safety, and as Chair of the Ad Hoc Cabinet Committee for Northern Alberta Fires to be here on this important and exciting announcement. We know that the Red Cross was always known for their emergency preparedness and their delivery of frontline services. And they again stepped up to the plate and delivered big time for this community and in fact all of Alberta and Canada during this time. I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, and the Canadian people thank you for your continued work and effort. I can also say that the first responders, community organizers, volunteers, all levels of government work together in seamless fashion to help in this very difficult and trying time. It was a devastating fire that took hold of this community, and without the organization and those people on the ground, who knows what could have happened. But what we saw was just 3 months ago, 90,000 people who had to flee this community, not knowing a sense of direction or where they were going to go. And it was these people who were there to shepherd them through this devastating time. And we're very proud of their hard work and effort. I can say that the Government of Canada is here today to show that we are here to support, not only for today, but over the course of the long run. Because we know that rebuilding is both mentally and physically exhausting and draining. And there will be many trying times still to come. We are working hard with extra partnerships and continuing to work through the Government of Canada and the Business Development Bank of Canada to help support our small businesses, the lifeblood of any community in Canada. And we're doing that with additional training and support here on the ground to get us through this difficult time. As you're all aware, the Government of Canada announced that we were going to support and match all donations made to the Red Cross in the month of May. And we're here to honor that pledge with $104 million that we're putting forward that's going to go a long way to help rebuild and allow for that frontline support that the Red Cross is so known for and that they're delivering here on the ground. Also very proud of the fact that approximately 1 month ago, the Government of Canada made the quickest advance payment under the Disaster Financial Arrangements Act in our history. We understand that we're not into bean counting. We're into making sure that the money gets here to be used quick in the response to rebuild. And we'll continue to work with our partners at the provincial and municipal level to ensure that the Disaster Financial Arrangements Act gets carried through in an efficient and effective fashion that allows this community to rebuild. I can say that without the hard work of community, that sense of Canadians from coast to coast to coast, who all came in not only and volunteered, but opened up their wallets to a community. It's times like these where we reflect on what we mean to each other. We recognize that we're not in this alone, that we are our brothers and sisters and keepers. And that's what we've represented through this time and through the example we've set here in Fort McMurray. I can say that our government, as well as I know the provincial partners and the municipal governments, are dedicated to rebuilding this city in a foremost and effective manner. And it too will become not only what it was, but it'll become even better than it was. And I can say I've been proud to be here twice in the last 3 months, because it's gotten me back into a city where I hadn't been in 25 years. I played junior hockey in the Alberta Junior Hockey League, and we'd come up to Fort McMurray. And it was a robust town then, but over the last 10 years, it has become a real beacon of hope for the rest of this nation, where people have come to build their lives and have been a strong supporter of the Canadian economy. We recognize that as the Government of Canada, and although it's going through difficult times, both the fires and economically, we're going to see better times in the future. The best days of Fort McMurray lie ahead, and I look forward to sharing them all with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister Hare. I'll now invite Danielle Larrabee, Alberta's Minister of Municipal Affairs, up to speak.
Good morning, and thank you, Conrad, and thank you, Minister Hare. Pleasure always to join you here today, and thank you, Mayor Blake, for hosting us this morning. It has been 3 months since our province faced the biggest evacuation in its history. More than 90 days since thousands of people were forced to flee their homes as wildfires raged in Fort McMurray and surrounding areas. As someone who knows firsthand how hard and scary it is to leave behind your home and your community, not knowing what you will come back to, it was so important for me to be here on June 1st when residents returned home. Today, so much has changed already, and I see a tremendous amount of progress in this community. I know that is due in large part to the resilience of the people of Wood Buffalo. It was their strength and courage in the days and weeks following the evacuation that prompted Canadians to give so generously to the Red Cross Wildfire Relief Campaign. As a province and a nation, we have stood with the residents of Wood Buffalo, showing them that they are part of a much bigger community. And in that spirit of community, as Conrad said, more than 1 million people donated, and the Government of Canada matched those donations. Our government has also matched donations made by individual Albertans, And thanks to the incredible generosity of Albertans, our government is contributing more than $30 million. I am so proud of Albertans and Canadians who opened their hearts and their wallets to help each other in a time of great need. I want Albertans to know that their money is making a real difference in the lives of Wood Buffalo residents as they recover from this disaster. Over the past 3 months, more than $113 million has been spent on meeting the immediate needs of residents. But we promise to stand with the people of Fort McMurray in the months and years after this devastating wildfire, so we know that this is just the beginning of a long journey, a journey of coming together and working together. Through our partnership with the Red Cross and the regional municipality, we have been working to identify the long-term needs of the people of this community, and we have determined 3 areas of focus for the province's matching funds: community partnership grants for charitable nonprofit, Indigenous, and faith-based organizations, small business relief, and post-disaster wellness support for residents. We are targeting funding towards programs that help residents both economically and emotionally, and programs that ensure the community has the tools it needs to meet the needs of its residents. That comes in the form of giving to the great local organizations that are already here on the ground providing help to residents, and also supporting business owners so that they can reopen their doors and take care of their staff. And it means we must prioritize the well-being of residents throughout this recovery process, because this wildfire has affected every single person in this community in some way. Our government will announce the specific initiatives the matched funds will support in the days and weeks ahead. Again, as someone who's been through this, I know that the road ahead is long and there are still many challenges to overcome. But I also know that our province is strong, and the quick and generous response from Albertans and Canadians is helping the families and businesses in this community to rebuild. The residents and the regional municipality have the determination to do it, and the province and the rest of Canada will support that work every step of the way. Once again, my thanks to Albertans and Canadians for their generosity, and our partners, the Red Cross, the federal government, and the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo for their support. I look forward to seeing the progress that's made in the next 90 days and beyond as this strong, resilient region continues to recover and rebuild. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Larrivee. I'll now ask Melissa Blake, Mayor of the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo, up to speak.
Thank you, and good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is an incredible honor for me to be here today. They're pretty hard acts to follow when you have the incredible contributions and work that have been done by the Red Cross, by the federal government, and by our Alberta government. Yet I am here not to speak so much of that as the gratitude that our citizens feel. I'm here with Councillor colleague Sheldon Germain, who's tucked away in the back, and if I'm missing any of my other councillor colleagues, I will tell you that it is on behalf of Regional Council and all of the big-spirited residents of Wood Buffalo that I'm delighted to be here as we discuss such progressive and positive announcements for our region. Of course, you know that I'd like to thank those fine distinguished guests that I referenced earlier, Minister Hare, Minister Larrivee, and Mr. Sauve, for their collaborative efforts in being here today and tirelessly supporting this region. We're here as we host the event in the urban core of Fort McMurray. I know that it's important to recognize all of the resources that have brought us here. But I also stand in the spot and get a bit of a goosebump because it was exactly 90 days ago when I was standing, or not 90 days, sorry, 3 months ago to the day when I was receiving the morning update at about this time, frankly, where we knew we had a bad day ahead of fighting fire, but we had no idea that we would be evacuating every living soul in Fort McMurray that day. As we did have that day unfold and we saw the dark skies fill and the air get thicker, the flaming in the trees that was happening and the people being forced to flee, literally for their lives. It was an incredible experience. No matter which direction you went in, people who left were able to get support in places we never imagined it. We had those incredible people from just down the road, if you will, coming and bringing water and bringing gasoline to those in need. When you were stuck in the north and had the same challenges, the work camps along the route let us in and gave us beds for the nights that we needed them. When you went down the highway, you had family members insisting on knowing where you were every step away, that you were okay. What we had at the earliest inception was the Red Cross. The Red Cross was there with their incredible resources, and not understanding how complicated it would be to find out where 88 or 90,000 people were at any moment in time. It was the first experience that we had with that organization. I've been happy to support Red Cross initiatives around the world. Never did I imagine that the Red Cross would be supporting my world, our world, right here in Wood Buffalo. As we advanced in the efforts in fighting this beast, the province was incredible, and I will say it again and again, the resources that they brought to bear come from the culmination of the incredible challenges that our province has faced time and again. The Alberta Emergency Management folks who came in, I just call them the Men in Black. That's how their image it rests in my mind. The Canada Task Force 2 folks who came, our very own people at the heart, soul, and center of this, those Fort McMurray individuals, the Wood Buffalo individuals, the firefighters in the urban center, the firefighters in industry, the firefighters out in Anzac, and the rural communities who all came to do this, got relief to the smallest extent when we had these resources coming in and growing. It wasn't long after that the federal government came in. We had Prime Minister Trudeau come, and he brought a handful of ministers, and one of the handfuls, in fact, included Minister Hare. And we discovered that day that they would be creating this task force that would give some focus to what we were doing here. So when I stand before you today and I tell you that the outpouring of support that Canada gave us is what reassured us that one day we would be home, on that day, May 3rd, I didn't know if any of us would have a home to come to. Now, just like you've heard from other speakers, that safe, resilient, and together mantra that we recite 10 times a day around here is in fact what gives me the absolute certainty that we will come back, that we will be better in the end, but that end is a little ways out as we go. So it's hard to find the words and the emotions that do justice for what those folks and so many others have done for us. It's just incredible, as I say, to think about the donations that have come in my office. I've seen Ziploc baggies of piggy banks that were emptied so children could support this horrible thing that was happening. I've received letters from seniors who portioned off some of their fixed income that comes, and they made it for us in Fort McMurray and Wood Buffalo. To every individual who supported this cause, you have my undying gratitude. The financial and emotional support that we've received and continue to receive has been incredible and imperative as we make strides towards recovery and rebuilding, which absolutely is our top priority. The amazing acts of kindness that I referenced before that we've witnessed, not only on a national level but around the world, are simply unfathomable. And on behalf of those very same strong and resilient residents of Wood Buffalo, and with a profound degree of sincerity, when I say I thank you all, I sincerely, truly mean it. We are overjoyed to see our community returning the support that we're receiving our partners here today. Again, I will say, we are safe, resilient, and together, and on the road to recovery. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Mayor Blake. I'll now ask Conrad Sauve to come back up and provide some more details on the programs.
Thank you, Mayor Blake, and thank you, Minister Eyre and Minister Larrivee. For the matching fund just announced, as an auxiliary to government, the Red Cross has a unique role in disasters such as this. And in the months and years to come, we look forward to continuing our work with you, along with community leaders as well as Indigenous leaders. It's the combined effort of governments and every person who donated to this disaster that made today's total a reality. With this matching fund announcement, the total amount raised to date for the Canadian Red Cross Alberta Fire Appeal now comes to $299 million. A true Canadian effort, and our heartfelt thanks goes out to everyone. As we take a look at the overall response efforts, the Red Cross has allocated funds in the following ways to assist people in the community. Assistance to individual and families. Within the past 3 months, we've already spent or allocated $146 million in this area of focus. And this includes providing more than $84.4 million of direct cash assistance in the form of bank deposits, cash cards, checks, or money orders. Examples of assistance include items such as food, clothing, medical equipment, items for babies or children, transportation support, or occupational items that may help you return to work. In addition, I'm pleased to announce that the Canadian Red Cross will assist with rent or mortgage payments, as well as the replacement of furniture, appliances, and household goods for those without insurance or without enough insurance to meet their needs. Funding within this area is also available to help with the rebuilding of homes through collaboration with experts in the area of home cleanup, repairs, and rehabilitation. This assistance is available for the people who were permanent resident of Wood Buffalo region at the time of the evacuation, regardless of which province they are now located. We encourage anyone who needs assistance as a result of the Alberta Wildfire to please call us and to make an appointment for a confidential assessment. Now, with the matching fund, the new amount we have allocated to individual and families is $196 million. Our next area is community initiatives, assistance available for community-based organizations and municipalities with urgent needs and to plan projects or event for recovery activities. To date, we've already provided more than $5.5 million in funding through 12 community organization partnership agreements. This includes $2.4 million provided to food banks of Alberta. An advisory group of community leaders will be formed to help determine local needs and how the Red Cross can best assist the recovery efforts. The total amount allocated to community initiatives is $50 million. Now, experience tells us that the support to small business is critical to the full recovery of the people and communities affected by disaster. To date, nearly $4.5 million in funding has been provided to the Economic Developers Alberta and the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo for the Business Recovery Hotline and for emergency financial assistance to small business. As we look ahead, an additional $25.5 million will be provided for the business community to address recovery priorities. We're working closely with the Government of Alberta, and additional details recovering recovery support for small businesses are expected to be released soon, likely within the coming weeks. Now, with the matching fund, the amount we have now allocated to small business is $30 million. And our final area of focus is community resilience and disaster preparedness, where we've projected to spend $12 million. Experience has shown us that one of the important parts of recovery is to help people and communities affected by disaster to better prepare for future events. As the recovery efforts unfold, you'll see this work encompassing personal preparedness at the household level, in addition to collaboration with and coordination with the broader community. It's important to note that these allocation reflects the needs that have been identified to us at this point in the response. And we know that many needs emerge over time, and we will respond to those needs. The above allocations may be adjusted. Please know that our first priority will always be to help to meet the most urgent unmet needs of people affected by the disaster. I want to assure you as well that every dollar donated to the Canadian Red Cross for the Alberta Fire Appeal is held in a separate trust fund. The fundraising costs related to the emergency appeal will not exceed 5%, and these fundraising costs are associated to the total funds donated of $165 million, not the matching fund. Before I end today, there is one final thing I'd like to share. As residents of this region start to return home, we've asked Canadians to write a note of encouragement. The response we received was overwhelming. In the first day alone, thousands of messages were sent to us from people from every province and territory. Our volunteers took these messages and wrote out dozens of them on square and colorful papers and put them up for people to see at our Fort McMurray office. Such touching words of encouragement reflected the incredible solidarity of fellow Canadians. And once reading those encouraging messages, many people responded with notes of thank back to everyone who gave what they had in terms of help or time. These notes are still posted on our office here and will be for some time. Because we know from experience it takes time to recover from a disaster. The sprint of emergency is over, and now we're in the long marathon of recovery. For some it may be weeks or months, for others it will be years. Whatever the length of time it may take, please know that the Red Cross will continue to be here to assist you throughout your recovery. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our speakers can now take your questions, but just a note to those who have joined us on the phone, unfortunately, technical problems mean that you are not able to ask questions today. So with that, I'll open the floor.
Minister, in St. Lake, we saw temporary housing units broken after the fire. Why is that not being done here?
So we're actually working with the regional municipality and the Red Cross to do a thorough assessment of those people who need housing to figure out exactly what their needs are, and we'll be working together to come up with a strategy in order to resolve those needs. So certainly that's not out of the question. We just want to make sure that whatever we do actually meets the needs of those residents who are still displaced.
We talked to some residents yesterday who are still displaced. There's a couple of thousands of them who are absent heating, home water, ways of church for home, because the chief medical officer is still deciding whether or not they'll be rebuilt. They're concerned that they haven't gotten a timeline for when that answer will be given. Do you have a timeline now for when they'll know whether or not their neighborhoods will be rebuilt, and so when they can start that process?
Right. So the Chief Medical Officer of Health has provided some guidelines to ensure what a safe return would look like. So what's needed in response to that is for the cleanup and a plan for return to be put in place. So we're certainly working with the regional municipality to get that plan nailed down to ensure that people can get back sooner rather than later. Certainly the municipality has set the firm deadline as September 30th for the cleanup, and really it is the cleanup that's the issue. But certainly we're working together to come up with a plan for mediation to ensure that some of the residents at least can return even sooner than that. So looking forward to working with the municipality to get those details out to residents as soon as possible.
And a lot of the cleanup hasn't happened yet, so it could take a while. Do you have an idea of sort of when it will be weeks, months before we know sort of when that kind of rebuilding process can start?
So certainly, there's no barrier to demolition permits at this point in time, and the insurance companies are working to get the cleanup done sooner rather than later with that as well. But again, that firm deadline, September 30th, is there for the cleanup to happen, so it should be happening right away.
Companies don't want to start the cleanup until they know whether or not the neighborhoods are actually going to be rebuilt. And we haven't had that before. Yes, this area will be rebuilt.
Right, and so the municipality certainly is, again, working hard on a plan to determine around rebuilding of that. So we continue to provide support to them to ensure that we can get those answers to residents as soon as possible. Again, the key priority always is the safety of residents and the best interests of the community. So working hard to ensure that safety and move those plans forward as fast as possible. That is a guideline set by the municipality, so I'm not sure if you want to take that one.
Thank you. Yeah, and the biggest portion of that, of course, is that we want to see people able to return to the neighborhoods. And if there's the impediment with the recommendation that people not go into that neighborhood until debris is removed, we need to make sure those standing homes can be occupied. At the worst case scenario, by imposing that date, we'll be able to take the action necessary to get that cleaned up. In fact, we've got the insurance industry who has created their prime contractor, which is the Fort McMurray 468 Nation and First Nation, and the I think Morgan is the contract in there. There are a number of individual companies in the community that have the capability of doing the cleanup. The homeowner always has the ability to make the choice of whomever they'd like to see do that. We also expect that there will be some homeowners that are uninsured and unable to do it, and so the demolition order is really, in fact, to take care of anybody who doesn't have the ability to get the job done. We'll have to take measures to make sure it is.
Even once the stuff is cleaned up, you can't give building permits until Chief Medical Officer of Health says, yeah, you can rebuild this. Does that concern you that there's all these people who are kind of saying, a lot of them don't have the incentive to get rid of that debris because it could cost them?
I think that's a bit of a misnomer. In fact, what we've got are the test results that have come in from the first phase of testing, the second phase of testing, and we've promised that there would be a third phase of testing after the debris is removed. None of the indicators in the early tests from first or second phase have indicated that there should be a debilitating factor that would not allow for redevelopment. What I know is that we have the zoning in place as it is. There's a significant difference in the waterways community at the moment that we're really trying to find an alternate solution to, but no neighborhood, in my mind, has the indication that they won't be able to rebuild, but there are all these conditions that have to be met before they can.
So you're pretty sure that every single neighborhood is going to be.
I am not sure every single neighborhood will be, but I am very certain that the ones like the Abasand and the Beacon Hill have the elements that would allow for them to do that if they've met the conditions. When I look at waterways, there's still a big question mark to that. We're committed to doing community engagement on that one, but at the worst case scenario, again, what we're trying to find are alternate means of solutions. We did a presentation last night on flood mitigation, which may come to bear, I'm not sure, but we're really working hard to find a way to make it possible for every neighborhood to be back.
Certainly, we've always been pretty clear that 1 in 100 was the standard that we expected, and that's what the exemption previously was based on. So we haven't changed anything at this point in time, but certainly we'll be working with the municipality to ensure that that all the areas that are potentially affected, that are within the floodway, are mitigated to a safe standard to ensure that the residents are protected in case of flooding, for sure. I did just want to be clear, absolutely, that the Chief Medical Officer of Health, the criteria is specifically around the demolition and cleanup. So that's it. Basically, once it's cleaned up to an acceptable standard, residents will be able to return. So there's nothing indicating that there would be a permanent requirement not to return based on any of the testing that's been done. So just reiterating that there's no prohibition on rebuilding from the perspective of the Chief Medical Officer of Health, other than you can't start rebuilding till it's cleaned up because it's not safe for people to be there building.
All the areas have to be cleaned up? Like so I can't start rebuilding in Abasand until Beacon Hill is cleaned up?
No, absolutely not. It's about the area being the area where you live being cleaned up within an acceptable perimeter. So again, there is the potential that particularly where there are clusters of houses within, not waterways, it's a little more complicated, but Beacon Hill and Abasand, there's some clusters of houses that potentially we can work on a mitigation plan to allow some of those people to return, even though the whole entire neighborhood isn't even cleaned up. So we're working as hard as possible to ensure that people can get back home as soon as possible, but making sure that it's safe at the same time.
I realize you can't give us exact dates, but are we talking weeks or are we talking months this year?
It actually should be relatively soon that we can look at potentially some of those clusters of homes being able to return. September 30th is less than 2 months away. So certainly, looking at that fixed deadline of cleanup, that's coming up relatively soon. But we'd like to see people home potentially even sooner than that, but beyond I can't give you an exact date right now other than to say we will try to get some of those clusters of homes open by providing some mitigation measures so some people can start getting home sooner rather than later.
So theoretically, after September 30, they can start rebuilding?
Yeah, I mean, by September 30th, any home that's not cleaned up will be cleaned up, and then the costs will be charged to the resident, I believe is the plan.
So September 30th is when residents can have the option to get it done, and after that, we've got to take the next step, which could extend it by a little bit longer, maybe around time to take to actually clean the ones that they're not.
For the Red Cross, can you talk in general, totally different now, but this is sort of the biggest donation that Canada has seen, that overwhelming support, and just how badly it was needed.
Well, I think as I mentioned, this was a huge disaster in that sense, and we've seen an unbelievable response from coast to coast. Canadians were touched by seeing fellow Canadians being evacuated and the fire and all that, and responded tremendously. And we've got donations from every parts of the country. This is one of certainly the most important fundraisers in terms of domestic activity that we've seen in the last number of years. Not in our history, unfortunately. We've been through world wars and different things where we've seen Canadians pull together, but it has been very touching, and I think all our members of Parliament and the legislature were reflecting on that. And we've got comments throughout the country, and I think it's a real. Canadians are very generous for international activities, but they will be there also for fellow Canadians in need.
Conrad, sorry, this is also for you. You guys have made the decision to help those, like you said, without insurance or not enough insurance. Why make that choice? Some people would say, well, you weren't paying your bills or whatever the circumstance would be.
Yeah, the Red Cross, we don't pass a judgment on why people need help. We help those in need. That's the humanitarian imperative of what we do.
Conrad, will there be another infusion of cash like we saw with the first go round? So the e-transfers, for example?
I'm sorry?
For citizens, the e-transfers for citizens, will we see another e-transfer at all?
Well, actually, we're helping those that need, so there won't be another. We're helping people that might not have had a transfer in cash. There's still some people we're working with. We're not going to do another transfer beyond the help we're doing now. No, those that are eligible that haven't received them, we're still working on some cases. But you know, you'll have all the details in terms of what we're helping out now.
The biggest, I guess, frustration or complaint that you're hearing from people? I know today you're here to express gratitude, but there's still a lot of people that are struggling.
That one. Yeah, absolutely. Probably the range of complaints depends on what phase you're in. And so, frankly, the first was about the sifting, people wanting to go through the debris that may be left in the homes that have been regrettably burnt to the ground. So we gave about a month-long period where we had incredible support come from these group called Team Rubicon. We had supplemental training that we did, but you couldn't commence the demolition until you gave people that closure. We heard that loud and clear from lessons learned out of other communities that have had such experiences. The second phase is about the demolition. And there was a lot of effort that had to go into creating the right conditions for the development, or the demolition permits. And that took us a little bit longer than we would have liked. But again, we've got that nailed down. And so now the concern is that people for a while couldn't get their demolition permits quickly enough. We've gotten over that hurdle. The next phase, of course, is that demolition. And so whatever might yield results there, I think it's about expediency and getting people home. And so speed is one element, safety is another. And sometimes the two of them are at juxtaposition to each other. And so frankly, we will put safety first, and we will make sure that we're being as efficient as we can. And again, those resources that people need, you've got this incredible group of people that are here today that have some part in all of that. But choices and insurance are all about that individual and the insurance relationship that they have. And so a lot of these things are frustrating, but there are many, many elements that they need to be engaged in.
And we have time for only one more question.
We couldn't see into Abassan or Beacon Hills this morning, but looking at waterways, there was one piece of equipment working. How does that make you feel?
Sad, obviously. I'd love to have a piece of equipment on every piece of property, but that's not logistically possible either. And so, frankly, the company that is doing the work for the big prime contractor with specs, that's only one element. We have a lot of those companies that have indicated their ability to create the kind of cleanup that's required, and they too can be at the disposal of the residents if they choose. Again, I'm going back to say that individuals have a lot of responsibility in terms of who they connect with and how that timing plays out.